Might well have been worse, but actually pretty even in terms of shots on target. United won in the first half, 5 in a better second half, which gave us an expected goals tally which was pretty level, but they did it in different ways, didn't they, today? Arsenal with almost 3 times as many passes in the final third. In fact, 3 times as many passes in the final third, and a lot more possession, more than double that of Manchester United. But is that game, set and match in the title race if it wasn't already? Because Arsenal have taken just 2 points from their last 3 Premier League games. And maybe we expected a lot more of Arsenal today, given they scored 7 in Eindhoven in the week. Was that wrong?
Yeah, I thought so. I thought it was covering over the cracks in midweek. I mean, before that, as I said before, I see him at Leicester. They scored 2 in the last 10 minutes. Leicester letting goals everywhere, left, right and centre. Never looked like scoring against West Ham. Never really looked like scoring against Forest. And I just thought, you're playing in the top league in the top league in the world, in my opinion. You're playing for one of the top teams in the league, and you've got no centre forward. No centre forward. I mean, you're asking Mourinho to go up there and play. He come on and got 2 against Leicester. Yeah, they were the last 10 minutes. Good finishes. But you're not going to win the league with him playing up front. And he looks lost up front. He doesn't give you a presence, doesn't give you anything up front. And it's so important, a centre forward. No team ever wins anything without a good centre forward. And Arsenal are suffering at the moment. And I think it's a worry now to the end of the season. You know, because I look at the games and I think they've got to score goals and there's no goals in them. And it's starting to get a little bit tight there. And then Man City have got some nice fixtures coming up. And it wouldn't be surprised me, Man City, I think, are in 5th at the moment, that they could catch Arsenal.
Of course, they need to keep pushing. But as we reiterated, 85 points is their maximum now, which leaves Liverpool needing a maximum 16. Is it all over?
Yeah.
They really answered the question a couple of weeks ago when they were still in a closer of a shout.
Yeah, I mean, they're 5th in the league and nearer to Arsenal than what Arsenal are to 1st. I mean, in my opinion, I'd be saying now we've got to concentrate and make sure we get in the top 4. I mean, they're too far away. Liverpool got to lose virtually half of their football matches. They've lost 1 all season. It's not going to happen. The league's over. It's finished.
When the players speak after the games, it's on about we just didn't have any cutting edge. You've got to have cutting edge. Cutting edge is very, very important. It's like as if to say, well, once we get that back, but if you've lost that cutting edge and you're not scoring goals, or you don't look like you're going to score goals, then forget about closing any gap on Liverpool. I agree. I think you should be more worried about the teams coming up behind you. Because cutting edge at this level, we've seen it, the amount of times they had possession in United's final third, but we never thought they were certainly going to score 2 or 3 goals. And that's a big part of football.
Why does it go from having cutting edge 1 game, which they did midweek?
Because they played against a really poor side.
Well, to Declan's point, they haven't lost at home for 2.5 years.
Yeah, and
they've beaten Liverpool, all right, a weakened Liverpool, but Juventus as well.
But that just shows you, I think, the level of this league is really relentless. And don't get me wrong, I think what Manchester United did, they sat deep, made it really difficult for them. But when I think about Arsenal at their best, I think about real pace on the counter-attack. And any time there's any space, when you've got Bukayo Saka, when you play with Trossard and Pedro Marino, you haven't got that pace that's really going to... You're not really going to worry about it. One area on the right gives you something, but in that respect, that means you can always go out and double up against him. And they haven't. He summed it up perfectly. It's a perfect analysis. We haven't got that cutting edge with the players they've got right now. And they're not playing at that level, and they're not threatening teams. They're playing lovely football, intricate passes, but unless they're going to score from something from outside the box, the set pieces have dried up. So nothing really is going in Arsenal's way. And I agree, they've got to be careful what's going behind them.
You're saying they scored 7 during the week, but they didn't have any swagger about them today. They did like nice bits of possession. But if anything, at the end, you're thinking United are probably going to win it. And United have been dreadful all season. They've produced in 3 or 4 games, United, but you felt sitting there. So I'd be looking at Arsenal's mentality and their swagger going, where was it? You're coming to United. You must smell that United here for the taking. United were sitting in and hoped, obviously, on the counter-attack. But Arsenal didn't show that. They went streetwise, and at the end they were really open, and United probably should have won the game.
But how do you explain that? I mean, that sounds like it's a mentality issue.
Well, it might be. It might be. So we're praising Arsenal the last few years, saying they've done well and they've made progress. But the next step is always the hardest one. So this idea of the last few years going, oh, they've made real progress, they finished second, blah. Oh, if you're playing for Arsenal, remember, what could a second to you? If you're talking about winning league titles, don't compare it to United, but where they are. But the next step, getting over the line, is the hardest one. But I'm not seeing an Arsenal team here where they turned up today. You went, I tell you what, they were machine-like. They put United. They knew United were there for the taking. And they weren't even ready to take that step. So forget Liverpool. Be more worried about the teams coming up behind you. I wasn't happy with their mindset. And even Declan Duran was going, well, yeah, we got a bit stretched. We were playing patterns of play. And United probably should have won it at the end against a really poor United team.
A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Arsenal, I suppose, with some positivity in terms of the title race, and Liverpool potentially might have come unstuck with a difficult run of fixtures, certainly through February. But when it came to the crunch, Paul, this is when Arsenal, having beaten Manchester City so impressively, have dropped off, losing at home to West Ham United, failing to get through Nottingham Forest, and then dropping more points here today. As we said, they've dropped 7 points in the last 3 games. How do you explain that?
What Declan Rice there got no cutting edge. You know, Mourinho had to come on in the last 10 minutes against Leicester and score 2 goals, and they were 2 good goals. Don't get me wrong. Never really looked like winning the game before that. It's so hard. It's such an art playing up front. Everybody wants a centre forward. I get that, but to go and say to a midfield player, "You're going to go and play up front," is.
So ultimately injuries, you're saying?
Oh, injuries, injuries hasn't helped. It hasn't helped. Yeah, it hasn't helped. You don't think Liverpool would have only lost 1 game this season if Van Dijk was out for 3 months? No, they wouldn't have. They'd have lost more games.
Yeah, but is that the part of a challenge for any big club? You have to deal with setbacks.
You have to deal with
everybody knew that they needed a striker.
Yeah, I mean, we had this with Arsene Wenger. Everybody knew that Arsene Wenger needed a centre half, but he'd never ever go out and get a centre half. And it's the same now. You know, you put in a £60 million bid for Watkins, or meant to have, in January. We'll go 65. It's 5 million. It's a cup of tea for Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? Go 65, and if it takes 70, do 70. You know, but it's like, we'll get by, and I know Arteta's a midfield player and was a very good midfield player. But I played up front my career. It's a hard position to play. It's a hard position. And when you're playing in a game like this where I don't like saying a low block, when they play 10 behind the ball, that's when you need that guy of a centre forward who's going to just pull off a centre half and then might get in the box at a near post, like Højlund did at the end there. He was unlucky. It was a great block. But that little bit of goal, they never had that. Mourinho, I can't really remember him touching the ball in the game. I'm sitting here now thinking, what did he do? And it's not his fault, don't get me wrong. And then you've got Wanyeri out on the right. He's 17. He's a kid. So he's going to be up and down. He's just played in Europe, in a European game. You know, the last 16 of the Champions League game. Then he's here. You know, Trossard was bought, really, to be honest, to be an understudy to Saka and Trossard, to Saka and Martinelli. He's playing every week. So you think of that front three. Does that front three get in Fulham's team? No. And where are Fulham?
And if you're Liverpool,
does that front three get in front of Man United front three when Højlund's playing and people like that? So
you look where Liverpool are. Liverpool will be looking at that today, and they won't be thinking, "Oh, this team are going to hunt. They're going to try and hunt. They're going to put us under pressure." Liverpool will be looking at it going, "I think Arsenal almost given up the title chase." The way that mentality ended, I was going,
Did it feel like that to you?
I felt like that. Watching, I'm thinking, "Come on, Arsenal, where's this?" And yeah, all that issue with striker, of course, and listen, everyone's looking for that striker and get you 20 or 30 goals. But I still thought there'd be that mentality going, well, we still get the job done. We still find a way to win. And if anything, it was the opposite. You had a Man United team here who must be low on confidence, struggling. We talked about protests before the game, strikers not in form, but they found a way. And if anything, at the end, you're sitting there going, I think United are probably going to win this. And they probably should have won it at the end.
And I think that is a difference when you think about what Liverpool got when they got Salah, Diaz, Nunez, Jota, players that are going to come off the bench, or if they're starting, they're going to affect the game. Szoboszlai adds goals. And if you haven't got that, Gakpo's been fantastic this season. They've got so many different players that can give you that goal threat. And I look at Arsenal and I think right now, who's going to get that goal? And it ends up coming from he was playing defensive midfield at the time when he scored his goal. So that's what they're lacking. They're really, and it's been apparent, and every single Arsenal fan knows it. So if you're going to make that kind of mistake, you don't make it as obvious what they are.
It was an unlikely source for the equalising goal because Declan Rice has only scored 1 in the Premier League before today, 5 assists. But really important and a good finish as well.
Yeah, I think this is a lesson to any kid out there watching football. You don't always have to run around like a maniac. Sometimes you just got to stand still. He just stands still on the edge of the box. Look, don't move. rolls back to him. Other players will run into the box there. He literally walks into the box. I think it's brilliant play by Rice because he could easily get carried away. Look, he just stands still. A brilliant finish.
Jamie?
Brilliant finish.
Well, I just look at this from Manchester United's perspective. They get themselves in probably when you feel like you've got safety in numbers. 9 men, and also the goalkeeper there, and everybody, if you can see, is pretty much looking at the ball. You've got your 2 defensive midfield, well, 3 of them there in the line. You've got Eriksen on the right, Fernandes, the number 8, and then number 7 is Casemiro. Nobody has looked over their shoulder where there's a massive amount of space. Declan Rice has got his arms out. Please lay it back to me. I'm in a good position. No pressure on the ball, and he just pens it into the corner.
They're ball watching.
Absolutely.
United are ball watching. And sometimes they're having a little rest at the wrong time and they're a little bit fatigued. Too many players ball watching, get drawn towards the ball. And you give Rice, we know it's his only second league goal. I'm surprised at that because he's got a good strike on him and it was a brilliant finish. But United just ball watching.
You said that Manchester United might have gone on and won the game. They very nearly did. A really good save from David Ryan, who had to be at his very best a couple of times in this game.
Oh, listen, we have to give credit to the goalkeeper. Listen, I wouldn't necessarily be a big fan of goalkeepers. I'm always critical. But it's just a bit straight for Bruno when he's running onto it. Listen, we know his technique and is brilliant.
What do you mean he wants to come at an angle?
Yeah, maybe. If he's coming onto it, it just looks a bit straight. He's trying to get his body rounded. If you see here, now, excellent play. And he's just a bit straight. And it just gives enough time for the defenders to get across and obviously the goalkeeper to make a really important save. And this is where the game was getting a little bit open. But when it was open, it seemed to be suiting United, not Arsenal.
How quick does he get up? He's such an incredible athlete. Look at him.
And it still takes saving that one as well, doesn't
Brilliant. That's what I'm saying. The agility that he uses.
But this is I think the best save of the game.
This was at 1-0, so
yeah.
maybe at 2-0 you're thinking it's a long way back for Arsenal.
I think this is great run. We run about United on the counter-attack. Great ball in. You're thinking hit the target hard and low. He does everything right, but we have to say that is a world-class save. Absolutely brilliant. All credit to the goalkeeper. We'd be critical maybe of the goal, but that was fantastic save.
Rasmus Højlund came off the bench and he's had a difficult run without a goal in 19 games. Can't say he didn't get moments here, Jamie.
No, you dream of this when you're sitting on the bench thinking, please get me one of these. He just doesn't get his first touch right, takes it inside too much. He's had to sort of open his body up with his left foot and bend it in. It's just not good enough. Too slow. I don't understand why he thinks he's got more time than that. Everything's happening so quickly. This one's a little bit unlucky. This is a great piece of defending. Really good body-to-body defending, and you can see it here. The pass is perfect. It's on his left foot. And good defending by Gabriel.
The encouraging thing for the striker, at least he's got a couple of chances. Yeah. Sometimes you worry about strikers, they're not getting in there, but he's certainly lacking in confidence. And his first touch with the first chance, he has to do better.
He's got that first touch on the first one, he's got to be come to his left. He's got to be aware Rice is there. So if he takes it a bit further to his left, Rice can't get across and then he can get a shot. You could tell he's struggling with confidence. But to be fair to the lad, he don't hide.
Brilliant free kick from Bruno, though, it was, right at the end of the first half to give Manchester United what was probably an unexpected advantage at that stage of the game.
I'm not sure about the goalkeeper. I'm still not. I just think it's gone within, well inside the post, and he still hasn't even got a hand to it. I mean, it's well struck, but I'm surprised with the quality and the goalkeeper that Raya is, and he's a top-drawer goalkeeper. I'm looking at that, and I said before when they were taking it, I was like, if this goes over the wall, where he's standing, he can't save this. And that's what happened. He got nowhere near it. I can understand if he hits the post and goes in.
Well, I want to explain why I think this is actually so hard to stop. And I want to give, obviously, first of all, we have to give credit to the striker of the ball. Then I want to look at Xerxes and Casemiro. What they do really clever, if you just stop it just there, just take it back just a little bit if you don't mind, if we can. Because if you can see there, the keeper can see, he can just got a nice gap for him
through
there.
that gap, yeah.
Little gap, and that's exactly what you want, because then you can see, once that ball gets kicked, the trajectory, so you might be able to get a look at it about 2 yards once it's gone as he struck it. But as he gets closer to the ball, just watch what Casemiro and Xerxes do. They take Thomas Partey across. Now, all of a sudden, that gap has gone. So the next time that he's going to see the ball is once it's just about gone over the wall. Now, you have absolutely no chance by then, with that trajectory and that top spin that he's got on it, of getting anywhere near it. That's why it's actually quite smart from whoever sort of devised that free kick, because it's closed the gap up, and then you have no chance, because the keeper can only react because he's not sure if it's going to get whipped into the other corner or whipped past there. I think it's a really great free kick from Manchester United's point of view, with the set-up from Casemiro and Xerxes, but also the execution.
Yeah, I think it was a brilliant free kick, considering the goalkeeper got nowhere near it. And when it's a right footer, you think it'll always kind of be coming in towards the goalkeeper. But I think the power's probably caught the goalkeeper, because you usually think if you can get over the wall, there'll be a bit of dip in it, but there was so much power in it. Yeah. I think it's I think it's almost caught the keeper by surprise.
25
You
points.
got a player like that. Sorry, just so David Beckham was probably the best that we saw here. Roy played what David had the opposite. He could always do the other one when he would reverse it. So as a keeper, you're thinking, is he going to go either way? And that's what Bruno Fernandes has. He has that quality. So the keeper's thinking, if I edge too far that way, he's going to reverse it into that corner. So you're always sort of playing cat and mouse. But once that gap closed up, it made him so difficult. So the next time he sees it, it's over the wall. Obviously, it was 11 yards probably the wall, which is wrong. But it was great execution.
Let's have a look at that. The law is a minimum of 10 yards. Minimum 10 yards. Gary spotted it in commentary straight away.
Great spot.
The free kick is 25.2 yards. And the measuring, you can see you do 10 strides. And it's always been a rough count. They don't have a tape measure. Our technology tells us that is 11.2 yards.
Yeah, but sometimes the wall creeps up when the referee turns his back or when the shot's coming. The wall usually kind of tries to...
Yeah, a little cheat.
Cheating a little bit, but they don't seem to do that.
So those cut strips, there's obviously 3 of them in the penalty area. So that's 6 yards where the cluster of players are. So you've got 6 yards plus a 1, I suppose, where Bruno Fernandes is, and then the question is how many yards it goes the other way.
Yeah,
right.
Are you following me? Not really.
Yeah, it's like that army, isn't it?
You can't see the end of the arrow quite.
Right,
But
Take
what
our
Roy
word for it.
says is exactly because when I used to have to stand in the wall, I'm sure the other guys did. As soon as you knew that once the referee's gone back to there, you're going to go right. Let's edge. Give yourself a couple of yards, and then he closed that gap down. But for some reason, Arsenal just do it too fairly.
I still can't get mad of his position. I can understand the other week when Pickford gets done by Fernandes because that's right-footed and he can whip it the side of the actual goalkeeper. But for him to score there is near on impossible. And he's so far ahead. I mean, I think he'll be disappointed. I think at least...
It's not that far by the time he shoots, though, Merson.
He's not that far. He's still far enough. If he's in the middle of the goal...
He's just right of centre, isn't he, by the time that the ball is struck. Let's hear from Christian Eriksen on it. He's talking to Patrick Davison. There we go. It's all about the tiny details.
Absolutely. Inches, isn't it?
We couldn't hear a thing. Gary Neville's coming and talking over there, so I've got no idea what Christian Eriksen said. But you styled out better than I did.
No, I think he said the extra year, and obviously it had a big help.
We will go to a break. We will get Gary's chair in, and then we will get reaction from the managers as well. No was the response, I think, to the question. Gary Neville has joined us, as you can see. We've got 3 former managers here who've been in pressurised situations of various sorts. But what did you make of that?
He was agitated, wasn't he? I mean, he's agitated walking over towards the Arsenal fans at the end, and I can see why. I know what he's saying about the first half, about how well they played. They dominated the game, but it's not line ball, where you have to basically run the ball over the 18-yard line and put your foot on it to basically score a goal. You need to put the ball in the back of the net, and he knows that better than anybody. I think Arsenal, for a couple of years, have done that really well. But the biggest inquest at Arsenal at the end of this season will be why did we not sign a striker? Now, is that because he wasn't provided with one by the recruitment team? They haven't signed one now for 2 or 3 years. And did he not want one? Is that the answer? But they're I don't know. It's a mystery as to how they've ended up in a position whereby it's all on Kai Havertz, because he doesn't fancy Gabriel Jesus as a striker anyway. And the same stuff that we saw and seen for quite a long time now with Arsenal is that they're recycling the ball really well around the edge of the box, but they haven't got that ability to be able to cut through teams, and it's costing them.
Ultimately, Paul, is that how this season is going to be defined by Arsenal? That failure to have a striker, someone who can step in when they have suffered these injuries?
Yeah, I would have said so. I think because if you look at the games that they've... No disrespect to West Ham, Nottingham Forest and Man United, I think if they got their full team out and the 3 forwards playing in Saka, Martinelli and Havertz, I think they take 7 points at least out of them 3 games instead of 2. But I still don't think that's enough to have caught Liverpool. I think we're just covering over the cracks a little bit, if I'm being honest.
I agree.
I'm with Jamie. I don't think it's been great this season. I don't think they've been as dominant in football matches as what we've seen them in the last couple of years. I think they've fallen off a little bit, in my opinion.
But is that because he hasn't had the tools?
No, they weren't playing the way they had all their team at the start of the season. There wasn't that efficiency or that calmness or that ability to kill teams off that we've seen in previous years this season. I thought they were so reliant on set pieces. That's obviously not working at the moment. I don't think that there's been a joy in Arsenal's play this season compared to last year before. And if you go back to the year before that, when they had Xhaka in midfield as well, I just don't see it. This year, there's been a lot of, and even with Bukayo Saka. There were games at home when they couldn't finish teams off. They haven't been at the level they have in previous years, I don't think.
And 10 draws, is it? 10 draws, you're not winning any league title with 10 draws.
So what does that come down to, do you think, Roy? Is it the makeup of the squad? Is it the approach of a head coach who has only known progress so far in his 5 years at Arsenal?
Yeah, a bit of everything, and I'm sure there would have been frustration from the last few years that they didn't get over the line or they didn't get themselves a cup or whatever it might be. And then you've the injuries, and then we saw the manager there. He certainly looks frustrated. He, when obviously the title was gone a few weeks ago, but he would still want his club and his team to show great mentality. To say, I still want to come here and try and keep some sort of pressure on Liverpool. But over the last 2 or 3 games, that's gone now. And we mentioned it earlier. I think the biggest concern now is what's happening with the teams behind him. They've lost that momentum for the season. I think what we saw here today was nowhere near good enough. And they've set really high standards the last few years. So on one hand, you want to give them credit, but we always say the next step is the hardest step in terms of trying to win a league title.
Well, do you think it's a matter of time, Gary, before they make that next step?
Well, maybe, but why was he so agitated when Patrick asked him that question about the striker? Normally when you see a manager act like that and he sort of walked off the... I mean, he seemed to walk off. That's what I looked like.
Maybe that's a frustration that it didn't happen. Maybe he really wanted it to happen.
But that's my point. You know, if you see a manager sort of... Not losing it's going a step too far, but walk off at an interview when he's been asked a question, you normally think that something's sort of getting to them, it's coming on top a little bit. Is he sick of being asked that question? Does he think that's too simple an answer that he hasn't got a striker? But the fact of the matter is it'll still continue to be asked. The reason it'll continue to be asked is because there are hundreds of thousands of Arsenal fans who for many months and years now have said we need a striker. It's not just, you know, us in this studio or Patrick Davison who's asking him a question. Arsenal fans, and you can't kid football fans, they know their team as well as anybody. They need a striker. They needed a top-class striker in that changing room. And I do think a top-class striker would have made a big difference. I agree with what they've said here, that actually the step up in performance. But Liverpool can not play well. And because of their options up front, can win games. Yesterday, they can be 1-0 down against Southampton. You were watching the game, Merson, on Soccer Saturday, and I was listening to you. And they can just, through moments of Diaz, Nunez, others, win games. You know, they've got options off the bench. Mikel Arteta has not got those options.
Would you sit there with confidence, Jamie, and say that next season, OK, if they sign a striker, that Arsenal will be challenging for the title?
Yeah, they will. Yeah, absolutely. I'm confident in that. I think, but they've got to start an elite striker. And the problem is, how hard are they to find? It's incredibly difficult. No one really wants to sell their best player. They always get spoken about with Alexander Isak, who is obviously elite, because obviously you see the goals he's got and how he plays. But it's not going to be that easy. Do you think that Arsenal are going to be the only players in town, even if he were to leave Newcastle? Barcelona are talking about wanting him as well. There's been a load of clubs that will want him. But they've got to find someone. Is it Sesko as well? They've been mentioned in trying to get... But it's just a case of, I think the guy said it earlier on, a striker. Because even though Kai Havertz has done well, they signed him as a number 8. They signed him as an extra midfield player. Then you ask him to go and be a killer in the box. And yes, he had some good moments, but is he an out-and-out striker that's going to get you 20 goals? Is he going to get you Salah's numbers? That's what they've got to try to find. And if they do, with their defensive stability, they've got a really good goalkeeper that we all like, and midfield, they will certainly go close next season.
Roy, you said the next step is the hardest. Do you have confidence that they will make this step under Mikel Arteta? No. Why not?
Why would I? What makes you think they can do it? Or the manager can do it? They've got close over the last few years, and City will be strong next year. Listen, I'm sure Liverpool will be strong next year. Where's the evidence to think they can do it? Would it be get another striker in? Yeah, obviously that would help. Have they got the right mentality? Has this manager, we just seen there at the interview, getting frustrated, which is fine, because you see a different side to managers when they're winning every week. It's great. We've seen that even with Pep. But all of a sudden, when they're losing matches or they're not getting the rewards they think they deserve, they get all agitated and frustrated. And that's fine. I've been there and done it. But what is the evidence to think that if they get somebody to get 20 goals, that we'll sit there and go, well, that'll be the difference. I don't think it necessarily will be.
I suppose the evidence might be that they got 89 points last season, 85 the season before. It looks like they will fall short of this season because of the injuries they had.
Yeah, so...
They get those players back and they can add to that group.
Yeah, of course, all ifs and ands. But again, do you think City and Liverpool are just going to stand still? They're going to keep looking to improve. Listen, Pep will bounce back. I think Liverpool will be stronger next year. These teams aren't going anywhere, and they've had a bit of a dip this year, particularly Man City. We don't know what Chelsea are. We don't know what 1 or 2 other teams improving. But what's the evidence again from the Arteta or this group of players that they've got that mentality to challenge? We talk about challenging for a title, but to me, in my mentality, it's about winning titles, not challenging.
it feels a bit like whack-a-mole for them, really, doesn't it? Whereby they're just always sort of like... The first season they didn't win, it was because they didn't have Saliba and they needed someone to back him up, so then they signed defenders. Last season it was because, so they go and sign players that, you know what I mean? It feels like they're always behind. This season it's because they haven't got strikers or attacking players, so they're going to go and... But the other teams are still improving, as Roy says. The other teams are still getting better. So I think that it's not just about a striker, it's probably about a couple of forwards. You know, Liverpool have forwards that can play
Forward
across...
options, yeah.
Forward options that can play across that front line, that will score goals and chip in. Gakpo chips in, you know, Diaz chips in, Nunez chips in, Jota chips in. They all chip in with goals. Salah does more than chip in, you know what I mean? But a couple of forwards to add to that group and keep the defence and midfield as it is, they have got a chance, but are they going to get those players? And they always feels like they're one step behind.
Paul, just have the final say on this in terms of what Roy's been talking about, that perhaps Roy has a lack of conviction about them taking that next step with Mikel Arteta. What's your take on that?
I think they'll be in the title race next season. I think they've got to buy in the summer. They have to buy, and they will be in it if they keep if they don't get injured. If injuries, I said it before, if Van Dijk was out for 3 months and Salah were out for 3 months, Liverpool wouldn't be top of the league and lost one game. You know, they make differences. You know, you're never going to get a squad like Man City assembled over the last 3, 4, 5 years. That's never going to happen again. So you'll have to rely on players coming into the team, whoever they may be. Liverpool at the moment have got their team, and as Gary said, them forwards, that's why they're going to win the league. They've all got at least 10 goals and Salah's got 20 or 30 in him. They've got to rely on players to come into the team that are not going to be better than what they've got. And at the moment, the front three, we've got a young kid who's going to be a superstar. We've got Trossard, who really was brought in as an understudy, and a centre midfield player playing up front. Would never happen in any other country.
What about Sterling? I mean, Mikel wanted him in, and then he's left him on the bench for 90 minutes at Old Trafford, and they need a goal.
I thought today would have been all right. I thought it was a tight game. He gets the ball and he can dribble. Do you know what I mean? He might get a nick, a free kick, and you know, if I was Sterling now, you'd be thinking, will I be playing for Arsenal ever again?
Yeah, but the question is, you were saying, will they be in the race? I think they will be in the race.
Oh, they'll be in the title race.
Yeah, but it's no good being in the race if you're not going to win it.
Well, you've got to be in it to win it.
Yeah, but listen, we're talking about Arsenal here. Listen,
well, I haven't won the league for over 20 years.
No, that's why I'm saying, so why are we sitting here thinking, yeah, we could say that for the next 10 years they'll be in the race, but it's no good being third, fourth. Who do you think is actually going to go and win it?
Roy,
that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about small clubs here.
But I thought
Forest might finish ahead of them.
They've demonstrated, I think, last season and the season before that they've got hallmarks of a team, I think, that can go on to win the title, a little bit like the progression that Klopp made at Liverpool. And I'm disappointed in them this season that they've fallen short. When City aren't there, and I thought Arsenal would be there. And to be fair, Liverpool have had a fantastic season, but they've not delivered this season. This is the biggest problem, I think, this season for Mikel Arteta. Losing the title last season and the season before, I don't think was that much of a problem for him.
Do you think this one will hurt even more?
This one will hurt more. This one will hurt more.
They were in a great position.
What Man City
they were in a great position 3 years ago. So they've been in good positions where they've had people scoring goals. And was it 2 or 3 years ago, people said, oh, they're out of the FA Cup, it's great. I'm glad they won easily in Europe during the week, because if they had a tough game coming up, they'd be saying, oh, we're getting ready for next week. They had no excuses coming to United today. Yeah. Everything was there for Arsenal to go, listen, you've had a good win during the week. You don't have to worry about next week. You can come and put a show on. And obviously United were on about like the intensity. I think there was one booking in the game. You got to turn up and flex your muscles and say, we're Arsenal, we're doing well, we're making progress, we've had a tough season, but we still do a good job on you. Didn't even do a job on United today. And United were there for the taking. United were just sitting and hoping for the best. They couldn't even do that. So why do we think next year this Arsenal team might get a striker in and they're going to win the league title? Well, I won't be putting any bets on Arsenal next year, let me tell you that. Not what I saw today.
Well, Manchester United have actually gone up a place. They're up to 14th now. We will hear from Ruben Amorim right now. Almost apologising for that approach using that tactical setup today against Arsenal. Gary, have your say on the free kick. You weren't here when we were discussing it earlier. And the advantage that it gives you, if that wall is not 10 yards, it's as big as 11 or maybe even more.
I'm sure through sort of, I don't know, virtual reality or something, if you move that wall forward 1 yard and then got them to jump. I mean, when the ball goes over the wall that low and goes in the net that low, you know something's gone wrong, either from the keeper or from the wall.
Is the referee marking it out?
Yeah, I mean,
I
just looked at it from the sort of, usually you think, oh, that wall's too close. You never, ever think that wall's too far away, but just look miles away. And then the Arsenal wall's huge in terms of the players that are in it, but you thought, I fancy Bruno here because the gap's big. I mean, I think your point around the goalkeeper's right. He's too far over to that side to start with. But then if a ball goes halfway up the net in the goal over the wall, something's gone wrong.
But it's also a good distance, isn't it? 25 yards as opposed to if he was striking it from 20 yards.
It is, but that ball just misses the Arsenal heads. If they're another yard, well, 1.2 yards forward, I'm sure, and they jump, or even, usually the wall ends up about 9 yards away because they creep, as the lad said before. So if you're 9 yards and you're creeping and you're jumping, they stop. They hit that. It hits the head. So it's. I mean, from an Arsenal perspective, I think they'll be disappointed because usually you feel that you're too far away and you start to creep and question. And obviously, United's players were aware of that in the second half.
Are we seeing the green shoots here? It was a lovely spring afternoon. Was there something here for Manchester United fans to cling on to, Roy?
I'm not sure, but do you know, I don't like where the manager feels he needs to apologise for the team sitting in. He's got to find a way to get good results. And sitting in, there's nothing wrong with sitting in, even for big clubs at home. Obviously, you'd want them to be a bit better in terms of possession. But if that's the way you can get results against teams who you think are in a better place than you and obviously higher up the league and more confident, what's wrong with sitting in? I don't know why he needs to apologise for that. But it was a battling performance. Before the game, you thought, well, we take a draw? But listen, you have to give him a little bit of credit. But it was still, in general, I thought the game was of poor quality. But we saw 2 brilliant goals. But a long way back from United. Listen, we keep saying that. But they showed some battling qualities. I give them that.
You also heard him say there was obviously acceptance, apologies about the style, but we need points.
Yeah, which is fair enough. Well, he said it. Exactly what you got to do. You've got to find a way to get results at the moment. That's not going to be the way he wants to play going forward. He knows that. But I actually think he's bright enough to realise. I think he's got to be... And this goes back to my point. Like, we're going to talk about what his win percentage is at the moment and how well they're doing. I often listen to what a manager says and how much sense they talk. And I listened to other managers previously try to almost insult fans' intelligence by saying, yeah, actually, we played well today, and yeah, we are really showing signs. No, you weren't, and no, you're not. Whereas this guy understands the team is not of the level that it should be. Now, when I look at the Man United team, this squad, how many of them would have got in these two the squads? It wouldn't even. Bruno might have got on the bench at most. Apart from that, none of them. So that's how much the quality has gone down. So if you're not going to have those types of players around you, you've got to improve it. You've got to get your recruitment right. And when there's that, how long is that going to take? Is that 2, 3, 4 windows? Who knows? But he is well aware, and he's probably the first one that's actually come out and said it, that we are not good enough. So if you get rid of him, you're only going to have another manager come in and work with an average bunch of players. They're not good enough, these players right now.
I think this group is better than 14th, though, Jamie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But that's not just all his fault.
Of course not.
That's obviously a joint manager's job.
Yeah.
So there's not. But I do. When I look at Bournemouth and what other teams have done and how well they're doing, and you look at the league table and you see some of the sides at the bottom, that shouldn't be the case. We know that. But I still think that it is an absolute time is of the essence. You can't just keep chopping and changing managers every week because that's not going to bring success here.
But there's the balance that he's trying to strike. And it's interesting to hear him talk about it today. He's come in and very clearly wants to change his style and he wants to recruit in terms of that style. But they need to get points now. Do you think he's got that balance right since he's come in? 5 wins from 17.
No, not at the moment. I think he's come in and he's stuck to his principles. He plays free at the back and he wants to play free at the back. And I think he probably got the job because he wants to play free at the back. So why change now? It's going to take a bit of time. I thought they'd done well. I thought they'd come in, they sat 10 behind the ball, they had a game plan. Arsenal never really looked like scoring. I can't remember Onana making many saves. And they looked a little bit of a threat when it went 1-1. I felt the shackles come off and it was like, oh, we can go out now. You know, when it was 1-0, they were sort of defending too deep for me. And when it went 1-1, I thought Arsenal for the next 15 minutes to win this game. It went the other way, and Man United did. No, I like what he did today. You know, he come here, 70,000 people, sat 10 behind the ball. You know, I like managers that do that. It takes a lot. You know, Sean Dyche was a bit like that at Everton. I like them managers that don't listen to the crowd, because you can get involved in the crowd.
Nuno Espirito Santo has Nottingham Forest third with the lowest possession in the league.
Yeah, but they've got a lot of pace on the counter-attack, and they've got an out-and-out centre-forward who holds the ball up. And the most important thing, they score the first goal in a lot of football matches. You know, Man United don't score the first goal in a lot of football matches.
But he is very honest, Gary. He's almost welcomed questions about his own position and his own future at this football club. In reference to Arsenal and Mikel Arteta this week, is he going to get the time that he needs to make the change that is necessary here at Manchester United?
I think they'll back him. I think that they'll back him in the summer, and I think they'll give him money and chance to obviously alter this squad. He is positive. I think that he's got nothing to lose by being positive, because, to be honest with you, the managers over the years have tried to defend players here and tried to sort of not call them out. I mean, he's called them, you talk about what we say in this studio, but he delivered the harshest line on this squad. He said they're the worst team in Manchester United's history. And to hear that from your manager is unusual. In fact, it's rare.
Was he wrong to do that?
No, because I think it generally could be. It's a really poor squad, and obviously it's been expensively recruited over the last few years, but it needs ripping up. And the lack of pace, I mean, Mercer just talked about there, the lack of pace in midfield and attack and in wing-back areas is unbelievable. I mean, you've seen up front today, you've got Xerxes, Garnacho, who's got a little bit of pace, he's sharp, and Eriksen. Last week it was Højlund, Xerxes and Eriksen. You've got Casemiro and Fernandes in midfield who aren't the quickest, and you've got two wing-backs who are full-backs who can't, to be fair, create up top. So his attacking options to score goals are absolutely none. I mean, you talk about Højlund, he's living off less than scraps.
But they did create chances today, Neville.
No, they did.
That's the ironic thing about it.
Yeah.
They sat in because it was against Arsenal, but sometimes they should sit in against lesser teams. I think your ego and pride can get in the way, going, we're Man United, we're at home, we're going to go after the team. No, even against lesser teams, sit in. Yeah, you mightn't have real pace, but you still have like lads today. Lads get into good positions and a kind of mentality to get into the box.
The only manager in the last 10 years who's been able to actually play on the front foot successfully, that's been Van Gaal. The rest of them have ended up coming in with fantastic ambition to be a front foot team, a pressing team, but they've ended up at the back of their own box. Amorim, Ten Hag, Ole, Mourinho, Moyes have always ended up back at the edge of their own box, and that has got to change. I'm not saying you can do it sometimes, but you have to have the ability to also to be able to sustain attacks in the final third, like Arsenal have done today. That's when you are a really good team, when you sustain possession in the actual opposition half. No United manager's been able to do that apart from Van Gaal.
So is it just a question of swallowing this very bitter pill this season, finishing 14th, trying to go as far as you can in the Europa League?
Yeah, obviously they'll be hanging their hat and doing well in Europe, yeah, and suffer the next few months. Get to the summer, move lads on, which is easier said than done.
Thursday's
but we go
big.
back to it.
Thursday's
yeah,
huge.
huge game from, of course. And we've spoken about other clubs over the last few months. The key to any club, bit of success, is get the recruitment right. You get that wrong, you will suffer for a number of years.
There we go. Roy Keane, Paul Merson, Jamie Redknapp, Gary Neville, thank you very much.